My name is Serhiy Falatiuk. My job is to provide air defense. On the first day of the full-scale invasion, I shot down 2 Russian Ka-52 helicopters over Hostomel. Later, during the battles for Bakhmut, I also destroyed 2 Su-25 aircraft. Here's how it happened. I was informed over the walkie-talkie that our jet aviation would be operating, so out of curiosity I stepped outside to watch our planes fly. From the direction of Kyiv I heard the roar of aircraft, and from the opposite direction I heard the sound of a helicopter in the sky. I reported over the walkie-talkie that I could hear helicopters in the area. The response I got was that there was nothing there, only our aviation was operating. I kept looking in that direction and then saw 6 Ka-52 helicopters flying low, hopping over the terrain. I reported visual contact, grabbed my manpads and launched a missile at the first Russian helicopter. When I saw that the hit was successful, I shot it over the radio, fired an enemy aircraft, and that was it. I was using the Igla one-man portable air defense system at the time. It's right here in front of us now, a good Soviet system. It doesn't have a countermeasure selector, which actually helps it lock onto a target faster. If there is a single heat source in the sky, it immediately locks onto it. However, if an aircraft releases decoy flares, the missile of an aircraft releases decoy flares, they can confuse the missile, causing it to hit the flare instead. That is disadvantage. However, if you hit the target at a moment when it's not releasing flares, the missile strikes directly. It consists of a launch tube, a ground power source, and the firing mechanism. I was certain that there was Russian helicopters because of their type. If they had been Mi-8 or Mi-24 helicopters, I might have let them come closer to identify the aviation markings. In Russia, the symbol is a red star, whereas we use the Ukrainian flag. But these were Ka-52 helicopters, which we do not have in service. They are only used by the Russian Federation. It was clear they hadn't come just to fly around. By that time, missiles had already been striking Kyiv. At that moment, I fully understood that they were flying in with the intent to seize our country, our capital. The Ka-52 is an attack helicopter with a crew of 2, a pilot and a navigator. I think the first 6 helicopters were attack helicopters scouting the Antonov airfield to prepare for the landing of military transport planes carrying paratroopers. We opened fire on them with man-portable air defense systems. They were probably afraid that an Tu-76 wouldn't be able to land here, so the paratroopers continued flying in on Mi-8 helicopters. The helicopters carries weapons and can transport up to a platoon of infantry. The first helicopter I fired a missile at, it made an emergency landing. I hit its rock pod. It made an emergency landing near the settlements of Listovice and Bucha. That evening, there were already a lot of photos showing locals taking pictures with it. There was also a torn wing next to it. That was the first damaged Russian helicopter that I forced into contact with the ground. All the others had a blue radom, but this one had a gray one. It became known as the first down helicopter. Later, through stories, investigations and journalistic articles, I found out that there was a brigade commander from Russian Space Forces on board. A colonel most likely received the Hero of Russia title. In the end, I don't know, maybe he was wounded, maybe he even got the Hero of Russia title after all, since he flew quite far. The second helicopter was not so lucky because it was blown to pieces. That was my first combat missile launch. Our personnel also opened fire on the helicopters and hit them. Emotions were overwhelming, but it was clear that the enemy had the advantage. They started firing at us just when they figured out the location of our firing position. There was no panic, everything worked automatically, because you understand that you still have your personnel, you still have weapons, and there's still a lot of them left and they need to be shut down. We moved from position to position. When we were running for cover, I kept thinking, at least I don't die on the first day of the full-scale invasion. This day would drag on for a long time, and we had to keep fighting. We held them back from about 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We could have lasted longer if we hadn't run out of ammunition. The first group consisted of 6 Ka-52 helicopters. The second wave had around 42 helicopters. Half of them turned around and fled. Because when you fly in combat formation and one of you gets hit, The others get hit by the shrapnel from that helicopter, which is dangerous for them. I think if we hadn't opened fire on the first ones, that swarm would have come in much faster, and who knows how the battle would have unfolded then. By delaying the landing of their assault troops, we gave our other defense forces units time to move in and establish their positions closer to Antonov Airport, where they could fight back, repel the attacks, and clear Hostomel. In fact, the Russian airborne troops in Hostomel were rendered ineffective. They were somewhat neutralized by artillery of the 72nd Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Apparently, there was an airborne unit from Pskov, and a large part of it was destroyed at the Hostomel Antonov Airport. In my subjective opinion, even if they had moved directly from the border, they would have had a better chance than when they all flew into the airport, which was eventually surrounded by Ukrainian forces. They didn't expect this. I think they hoped they wouldn't be targeted by rockets. Some of our soldiers were captured that day. Russian FSB officers, generals approached them during interrogations and asked why we opened fire on them. They seemed to be in a panic that we shot at them. They were told during training that they would land, be met here, and then taken to Kyiv. But everything went wrong for them. Did you was that one who stand in their way? Yes, I ruined all their plans. In my opinion, they were intentionally sent to die. The details about this landing operation are very unclear. In Russian, they are probably respected only for having flown nearly to the center of Ukraine, to the heart of a foreign state, and started combat operations from there. Not everyone would have been able to do this, whether mentally sound or not. There are many videos, even from their GoPros, showing them landing from helicopters. You can see how some of them jump out of the helicopters and immediately run with rifles in hand to storm our lines. Some fall and look for cover. They reacted in different ways, whether they would be killed or not, and they already understood that they were surrounded. There were few options. Either you give your last fight, or you somehow try to survive for at least 5 more minutes. Russians work through the media, manipulating people, showing so-called heroism even in a completely unclear and lost operation. Because of this, they name streets after these paratroopers to wash away the shame. If those paratroopers had understood where they were going and what awaited them here, I think very few would have taken a part in that. But they are fools, going without understanding what they are fighting for. There is an order, they go. Well, nothing special, it's normal, let it be. I got out of such an ass that I didn't feel anything special. After that, a colonel came up to me in the dark and said, "Well done, we read about your work. You're a real badass, forever." They clap their hands, they throw you up, and you think it's all right. Then the commander of our brigade came up, said, "We're going back. Are you ready?" I shrugged, "Well, ready." I got into the transport, they opened the door, I look, the runway. I think this is the end. Then I look, Juliani. I think, well, thank God. But I think, who knows what will happen here in the morning. This is the Stinger. We first encountered the Stinger in Donetsk region in 2022. It's a very interesting system. It provides an even better hit probability than the Soviet Igla. However, in the current realities of the war, by 2025, this weapon has somewhat faded into the background because the enemy is also advancing and learning from their mistakes. Aircraft now, in addition to carrying guided air bombs, do not approach the front line. Bomb carriers get closer, but only at heights that are out of reach for this weapon. Therefore, we're transitioning to new weapons, drones for destroying the enemy in the air. For example, drones can be used against Russian strategic reconnaissance drones like Zala and Orlan. It can be done by much more efficient and cheaper weaponry. A regular FPV drone can be purchased for hryvnias, whereas such Russian weapons cost thousands of dollars, and it would be impractical to use them against UAVs. Of course, we have both FPVs and missiles in our positions. If large aircraft come, we'll fire missiles, but if the enemy uses strategic reconnaissance drones like Zala, Supercam or Orlan, we use FPV-type UAVs. This is because it's cheaper, more efficient, and we try to use the weapons appropriately for their intended purpose. To launch an FPV is not that simple. You don't just grab an FPV from the shelf, walk out, and launch it. It takes a lot of hard work from a large number of personnel. In the lab, they assemble it and make sure it's ready to fly and can give an image. There are also people who help locate the aerial target, indicating roughly where it is and where the pilot needs to fly. The pilot needs to get in the air and find the target at the altitude where enemy strategic reconnaissance drones are flying. They fly at heights of 1,000 meters or more. And that's the sky. I don't want to offend FPV pilots who work with ground targets, but there you fly and you can see everything. A person walking on the ground or a tank moving. But hunting on air targets, you have to fly in uncertainty at 1,000, 1,500 or 2,000 meters, and the enemies are now fools. They already paint their UAVs in black. To strike, you need to fly above the target and search for it below. And if they paint them blue or black, they can blend in with the ground, making it harder for you to find them quickly. When you destroy them, it allows our artillery to operate, our infantry to organize logistics, and carry out rotation changes. Because their strategic reconnaissance drones have a significant impact on the conduct of the war. In short, no matter how much the Russians develop their air reconnaissance with planes and helicopters, we also have many specialists who invent various means and methods to destroy any of their weapons. For every invention, we will find something better and defeat them.